Welcome back to Audio Recaps. Today we're diving into one of the most beloved films of all time, The Shawshank Redemption. Released in 1994, this classic was directed by Frank Darabont and is based on a novella by Stephen King titled Rita Hayworth and Shawshank Redemption. The film is a testament to hope, perseverance, and the power of human connection. The story begins in 1947 with Andy Dufresne, a successful banker whose life takes a shocking turn when he is convicted of murdering his wife and her lover. Despite his repeated claims of innocence, the evidence presented in court is overwhelming. The stoic and calm demeanor Andy displays during the trial is misinterpreted as cold-bloodedness, sealing his fate. He is sentenced to 2 consecutive life terms at Shawshank State Penitentiary. From the moment Andy arrives at Shawshank, it's clear he doesn't belong there. Unlike the hardened criminals surrounding him, Andy carries himself with quiet dignity. Shawshank is a grim and oppressive place, with its gray walls, unrelenting rules, and the ever-present threat of violence. New inmates, including Andy, are immediately subjected to humiliation, stripped of their clothes and identity, and thrown into this brutal environment. One of the first people we meet inside Shawshank is Ellis "Red" Redding, a longtime inmate who narrates the story. Red is the prison's contraband smuggler, the man who can get you almost anything for the right price. Early on, Red bets with other inmates that Andy, like most newcomers, will break down and cry on his first night. To his surprise, Andy remains silent, displaying a calm resilience that intrigues Red. Andy soon approaches Red with an unusual request: a rock hammer, a small tool used for shaping stones. Red is skeptical but agrees to get it, wondering what Andy, a banker, could possibly need it for. Over time, Andy also asks for posters of Hollywood actresses, starting with Rita Hayworth, to decorate his cell walls. Life in Shawshank is merciless. Andy quickly becomes a target for a group of predatory inmates called the Sisters, led by Boggs. They repeatedly attack and abuse him, but Andy endures without losing his composure. His quiet strength sets him apart and begins to earn him a reputation among the inmates. A major turning point comes when Andy overhears Captain Hadley, one of the prison's brutal guards, complaining about being taxed on an inheritance. Drawing on his financial expertise, Andy offers to help Hadley shelter his money legally. Initially suspicious, Hadley accepts Andy's advice and is so pleased with the results that he protects Andy from further attacks by the Sisters. This act also marks the beginning of Andy's unique role in Shawshank. As Andy gains the trust of the guards, his influence grows. Warden Samuel Norton, a deeply corrupt and hypocritical man who hides behind a facade of piety, takes notice of Andy's skills. Norton uses Andy to manage the prison's finances, laundering money through a scheme that exploits prison labor. Andy creates an elaborate system to disguise the dirty money, operating under the alias Randall Stevens. But Andy doesn't use his privileges for selfish reasons. In one iconic scene, Andy secures cold beers for his fellow inmates while they're tarring a roof. As the men sit in the sun, enjoying their brief moment of freedom, Andy sits apart, smiling. It's a small victory that highlights Andy's ability to bring humanity into an inhumane place. Andy's next project is the prison library. At first, it's a modest room with a few outdated books. Andy writes letters to the state senate every week, requesting funding for more books and materials. His relentless persistence pays off, and the library transforms into a thriving hub where inmates can educate themselves and find solace. Andy tutors fellow prisoners, helping many earn their high school equivalency diplomas. Through these efforts, he gives the men something precious: hope. One of Andy's most notable students is Tommy, a young and charismatic inmate who arrives years later. Tommy initially comes across as brash and immature, but soon reveals a genuine desire to turn his life around. Andy takes Tommy under his wing, helping him prepare for his GED. Over time, Tommy becomes a symbol of the hope Andy has instilled in others. However, Tommy inadvertently brings devastating news. He confesses that during his time in another prison, he met an inmate who bragged about committing a double murder that perfectly matches the details of Andy's case. For Andy, this is the proof he's been waiting for to clear his name. But when Andy approaches Norton with this information, the warden's true nature is revealed. Fearing that Andy's release would expose the money laundering operation, Norton dismisses the evidence and has Tommy killed, staging it as an escape attempt. The loss of Tommy is a crushing blow for Andy. For a brief moment, even he seems to lose hope. He becomes withdrawn, speaking cryptically to Red about dreams of freedom in a place called Zihuatanejo, a coastal town in Mexico where he imagines starting over. Andy urges Red to hold on to hope, but Red dismisses the idea, calling hope a dangerous thing in a place like Shawshank. The next morning, Andy is missing. During the routine headcount, the guards discover that his cell is empty. A frantic search reveals how Andy escaped. Over nearly 2 decades, he used his rock hammer to chip away at the wall behind his poster. He painstakingly dug a tunnel that led to a sewage pipe, which he crawled through to freedom on a stormy night. Andy's escape is a masterstroke of patience and planning, but it's also an act of justice. Before leaving, he smuggled out the ledger containing all the evidence of Norton's corruption. He mails the documents to a local newspaper, exposing the entire scheme. Norton, facing arrest and disgrace, takes his own life. Meanwhile, Andy begins his new life in Zihuatanejo, a small, picturesque coastal town. There, he starts restoring an old boat, fulfilling the dream he once shared with Red. Back at Shawshank, Red struggles to adjust after Andy's escape. Paroled after decades in prison, he finds life on the outside to be disorienting and lonely. He's haunted by the memory of Brooks, an elderly inmate who couldn't cope with freedom and tragically ended his life. But Red remembers Andy's words about hope and decides to follow the instructions Andy left him. In a field, Red finds a box buried under a tree. Inside is money and a letter from Andy, inviting him to join him in Mexico. With renewed purpose, Red breaks his parole and sets out on the journey. The film ends with a heartwarming reunion as Red finds Andy on the beach, and the two friends embrace. The final image of them together, free and happy, is a powerful testament to the enduring strength of hope. The Shawshank Redemption is more than just a movie, it's a profound exploration of the human spirit. It reminds us that even in the darkest of places, hope can shine through, and no matter how impossible the odds may seem, persistence and belief in oneself can lead to freedom. If you enjoyed this recap, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with your fellow movie lovers. Thanks for listening to Audio Recaps, where we bring movies to life for you. Until next time, stay inspired and never lose hope.